Hello, today I'm going to be talking to you about understanding the basics of ratios and what they are. So first of all, let's just take a look at some key terms here. Of course, understanding what a ratio is will help you understand, of course, what we're going to be talking about. So it compares parts to a whole, parts to parts, or the whole to a part. So to try to break that down in 6th grade terminology, it's really a fraction. That's really all a ratio is. It's a fraction with a number in the numerator and the number in the denominator. So at the bottom here, you can also see how ratios can be used in everyday life, just in comparisons, such as boys to girls in a math class, boys to total students in a math class, or, of course, total students to in the school to students in the math class. So we usually use these as a comparison tool. All right, so what you'll be asked to do many of times is to actually write these out, and there's 3 specific ways you can do that. Ratios can be written with the word 2 in them, such as you see here, 5 to 3. All right. They can also be written with a colon. That also just simply reads out 5 to 3. And then finally, like I mentioned before, as a fraction, which this can also be written as 5 over 3. Okay? Order does matter. When you read the problem, such as this, the following, ratios of stars to diamonds, it matters the order in which you write them out. So in this example, you can see that there's 5 stars and 3 diamonds. So you can see each of these ratios wrote out the 5 first and the 3 second, or in the case of the fraction, the 5 goes in the numerator over the 3 in the denominator. So let's take a look at a few examples here. We're going to use these shapes to write the ratio 3 different ways, and the 3 different ways we just saw. Be very, very careful when you read the problem, because sometimes the wording can get a bit tricky and you can assume some things that you shouldn't assume. In this case, we're looking at triangles to circles. So we're going to look at our problem, and I'm going to notice that I have 2 triangles and that I have 4 circles. Okay, so the first way that we can write it is using the word 2. That is going to be triangles 2, 4 circles. Now that we know that, we can continue to write them the other 2 ways, using the colon, 2 to 4, or using a fraction, 2 over 4. Now keep in mind, if you've learned to simplify, you may be asked to simplify your ratio, which would then require you to simplify the fraction down. These can also, other ratios written in a different form can also be simplified down. To simplify a fraction, you simply divide by a common divisor. So in this case, 2 goes into 2 and 2 goes into 4, which would mean this would simplify to 1 over 2. So these can also be written as 1 to 2 and 1 to 2. Again, that is determined mainly by your teacher or by the level of math that you're in. So let's go ahead and look at the second example here, red to white. So this time you can see that they're actually pulling color into it and not necessarily shape. So the red shapes to the white shapes. Well, I can see now that I have 2 red shapes and I have 1, 2, 3 white shapes. So ultimately, let me do this, 2 red shapes and 3 white shapes. There we go. So ultimately, we're not even using one of the shapes in this case. So let's go ahead and look at the order. We're going to do red to white, which means first we're going to write the 2 red, then we'll write the 3 white. So 2 to 3. And we can then take that and use it to write the other 2 forms. 2 to 3 with a colon and 2 over 3 as a fraction. Now again, if you're simplifying, you can see that this would not simplify because it doesn't have a common value that divides into both numbers, 2 and 3. The last example you can see, or example 3, that it's going to want us to compare triangles to the total number of shapes. So we're going back to looking at the shapes. So starting with triangles here, we see that we have 2 of those. And then we need to count up the total number of shapes that we have. That needs to include the triangles. Total means all of them. So if we count all of them, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So triangles to total shapes would be 2 for the triangles to 6 for the total number of shapes, which would then leave us with 2 to 6 with a colon and 2 over 6 as a fraction. Now this one will simplify. Think of a number that divides evenly into 2 and 6. Hopefully you came up with 2. So 2 over 6 then, if you divide 2 into 2, that gives you 1. And divide 2 into 6, that gives you 3. So each of these ratios can also be written as 1 to 3 or 1 to 3. Okay. So let's just take a look at how they can turn these into word problems. It says, out of 32 students in the math class, 18 are boys. What is the ratio of boys to girls in the math class? So we're just simply trying to compare values or numbers of students in a class. So there's 32 students total. We're looking at 18 of which are boys. However, they don't necessarily give us the number of girls, so we have to do a little preliminary math here. So the preliminary math is figuring out how many girls there are in the actual class. Well, if there are 32 total students, 18 of which are boys, we can subtract to find how many girls. 32 minus 18, we're going to do a little borrowing here. The 3 becomes a 2, which makes that 2 a 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. 2 minus 1 is 1. So this is the number of girls that would be in the class. So we have 18 boys and 14 girls. So we're looking at a ratio then of 18 to 14, or 18 to 14, or 18 over 14. And again, depending on your teacher, they may want you to simplify. So again, you can use the same concept as before. Look for a value that divides evenly into both 18 and 14. In this case, that would again be 2. You can divide 2 into 18 9 times, and 2 into 14 7 times. So you can see each of these ratios can also be written as 9 to 7. All right, the next example, we're just looking at different types of flowers. Of the 25 flowers planted in the garden, 13 are pink and 12 are white. What is the ratio of pink flowers to total flowers in the garden? Now again, pay close attention to the wording of these problems. It's very easy to assume you're simply going to be looking at pink to white, but as you can see, that is not the case. We're looking at total number of flowers. They tell us that there are a total of 25 flowers planted, so we know that value. The ratio of pink flowers to total flowers, then, we will use 13 and 25. So 13 to 25 would be our initial ratio because there are 13 pink flowers in a garden of 25. We can also write that as 13 to 25, or lastly 13 over 25. And again, always analyze your ratios to make sure that there's no way that you can simplify it if that is necessary for you to do. And that is ratios, a lesson on ratios. Thank you for joining me.